It was a freezing night in New York City, January 3rd, 2011. Snowflakes were falling, neon lights reflected on wet sidewalks, and the city moved on with its usual chaos. People rushed to catch subways, taxis honked in endless traffic, and Wall Street traders drowned their sorrows in downtown bars. But, hidden behind the ordinary pulse of the city, a storm was quietly brewing. Somewhere in a dimly lit apartment in Brooklyn, a man sat silently at his desk. His name was Michael Carter. An ordinary man by all means, but with an extraordinary desire. He was tired of living a life where paychecks vanished before the month ended, tired of debts, tired of being invisible. On that night, Michael decided to gamble everything he had, his freedom, his future, even his life, on one dangerous idea, not just any robbery, but one of the most daring heists in American history. Michael was not a professional criminal. He had no mafia connections, no military training, and no record in the underworld. But he did have two things: patience and intelligence. He started building a crew, not of seasoned killers or drug lords, but of ordinary men who were just as desperate as he was. There was David, a taxi driver who barely made enough to feed his family. Rob, a mechanic drowning in unpaid loans. Eddie, a security guard tired of standing 12-hour shifts for minimum wage. Sam, a former waiter, bitter and broken. Chris, an electrician who knew his way around circuits and alarms. And finally, Kyle, a college dropout who dreamed of living a life bigger than the streets could offer. Together, they became Michael's 6 partners. Their target? The Federal Reserve Bank of Manhattan. This wasn't just any bank. It was a fortress. Billions in cash and gold were stored in its vaults, and the building was designed to be impossible to rob. But impossible was just another word to Michael. Planning took 14 months. 14 months of surveillance, studying, and practicing. The crew followed guards, noted every camera angle, memorized every shift rotation. They rented a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, where they recreated parts of the bank's interior using cheap materials. They rehearsed entering, moving, and exiting until their movements became instinct. But there was one major problem: access. The vault's digital locks could only be opened during a 7-minute shift change window. Without inside help, this was suicide. That's when Michael made his boldest move. He approached a junior bank employee, a man buried in gambling debts. At first, the employee refused, terrified. But when Michael offered him a way out, money enough to erase his past, he agreed. Now they had the missing piece. The plan was no longer just a fantasy. It was real. It was dangerous. And it was about to unfold. January 14th, 2012, midnight. The city was asleep under a blanket of snow. Michael and his crew, dressed in black, slipped through the narrow alley behind the bank. Their breaths fogged in the icy air, hearts pounding like war drums. The insider had done his job. The shift change was happening. The vault was unlocked. The cameras were disabled. They had 7 minutes. Inside the vault, time seemed to stop. Their gloved hands stuffed duffel bags with stacks of $100 bills and bars of gold. The weight of fortune pressed against their shoulders. In those few minutes, they had secured more money than most men could ever dream of. $72 million. But just as they were preparing to leave, a silent alarm began to blink. At least, that's what Michael thought. A faint red light in the corner flickered. Panic spread. "The feds are coming," one of the crew shouted. Fear gripped them. In a frenzy, Michael ordered them to take only half the bags and run. They left nearly $36 million sitting in the vault. What they didn't know was that the alarm was never triggered. The insider had installed the light himself. It was a decoy, a test of trust. Michael didn't realize it, but at that moment, his own paranoia changed history. That single mistake saved the Federal Reserve from losing double the amount. By dawn, headlines across the country screamed the same story: the most perfect robbery in modern American history. The FBI launched a citywide lockdown, roadblocks, raids, interrogations. But Michael and his crew had vanished into thin air. The government called it an embarrassment. The media called it legendary. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened to the crew. Some say Michael fled to South America, living under a false identity. Others believe greed tore the crew apart, that they killed each other over the missing millions. One theory even suggests the insider betrayed them, disappearing with a hidden portion of the loot. But one thing is certain: $36 million remain missing, unaccounted for, and untouched. Somewhere, locked away, waiting to be discovered. So let me ask you this. Let me ask you, if you had only 7 minutes inside a vault stacked with millions, would you take the risk? The problem is, even the most intelligent criminals are prisoners of human weakness. Fear, greed, and paranoia destroy even the best laid plans. And that brings us to the ultimate mystery. Is Michael Carter still alive, living in shadows with his share of the fortune? Or is the missing $36 million still buried, waiting for someone bold enough to find it? So what do you think? Did Michael survive with millions? Or did his greed destroy him? Nobody knows for sure. But here's what I do know. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more unbelievable real-life heists, then hit that like button. It tells me you want more crime stories just like this one. And don't forget to share this video with your friends. Let them decide whether Michael was a genius or just another desperate man who got lucky. Drop your thoughts in the comments.